Would you describe yourself as an introvert or extrovert? You've probably seen some personality tests around. You might have even done one or more, perhaps. You might be a debater, a commander, a protagonist, a mediator. But are they legitimate? Psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukens with me to explain all about these personality tests.
Personality tests have been around for a very long time. And essentially what it is, it's a standardised assessment, and it's designed to measure differences between people according to their patterns of behaviour, their psychological tendencies, the way that they might describe themselves. And it's just trying to capture consistent ways of thinking, feeling and acting. And they're often used in areas like recruitment and therapy and personal development. So we see them used quite extensively and in lots of different ways that we can capture different pieces of information.
Are they accurate?
It depends on which one you do. I know online, when I used to talk to university students about this, I used to always at the end of it profile, there's one called the lipstick personality test, and depending on how you wear down your lipstick depends on your personality. And I can confidently say that was a load of rubbish. But fortunately, many of the instruments are designed in quite a sophisticated way, and there's quite a lot of psychological understanding and research that sits behind them. But it's a great question, because if you're being asked to do a personality test or any of these kind of psychometric assessments, it's always good to know where they've come from. There's a good chance if you're doing it yourself and it's free, I would be looking at it through very curious eyes. I would be looking at that because most of the instruments that take standardisation and have any merit have taken years to develop and often have to be administered by someone who's appropriately trained to deliver them as well. Coming back to your question though, Susan, of how accurate are they, it does depend on the instrument, and I've seen variability in terms of them, in terms of how reliable they are and the information you can gather from them. But certainly what I would say in my years when I was working as a psychologist, they are a tool and they can provide some really interesting and useful information that can build towards a bigger picture of profiling somebody.
So one of the more commonly known ones is the Myers-Briggs test, the personality test. Why do you think they still appeal to so many people?
The Myers-Briggs is a good example because, as you say, it's been around for a very long period of time and has been extensively used. There are certainly critics of the Myers-Briggs, and basically what the Myers-Briggs tries to do is it's got 4 continuum along it, the first one being introversion, extroversion, which people get a bit of a picture as to what that might be. It's actually a little bit more detailed than the sort of the lay definition of introversion, extroversion, but what it does is it tries to measure you across the continuums and then try to build up a little bit of a picture. And so Myers-Briggs is saying, what's your general preference? So I might generally prefer to spend my time with others, be outwardly social and get my energy from being with other people, or someone else might more prefer to be more solitary and they find people zapping is basically what that measure might look like. Now that's useful if you are working in an organisation and you are working out your office plan. Probably wouldn't put all of your more introverted people with all your more extrovert. If you don't get that mix right, it can be problematic. So we do see those tools around. I think what it does for organisations is it provides a bit of a common language around people and their preferences. Where we have to be careful is when people are pigeonholed around those personality preferences and almost feel a little bit fixed in terms of how they're described, and that can be problematic at times.
Interesting. How does knowing your type affect your day-to-day life?
Yeah, so again, that's going to depend on how you understand it to be and how well explained the debrief of it has been for you. Some of the instruments that I've seen that I like help you to understand yourself in terms of your strengths and then your areas where you could improve and get better in different areas. So that can be useful for you in terms of your confidence and certainly in terms of your personal growth. There's always something that we can work on. So these labels can be helpful in understanding interpersonal dynamics. Where I've seen it work really well is I can remember working with one organisation and we'd done a particular profile that staff were comfortable that we were all sharing results with each other. And I can always remember 2 people who had a history of conflict in the workplace looked at the results and then went, oh, that's why we argue. And so it gave them some understanding. And so then it gave them, almost a bit of a language to talk about these things. Then when they would encounter conflict, they wouldn't look at it from necessarily what the matter was, but they'd go, okay, so this is your style,
this is your perspective.
My style.
Yeah.
And so it actually gave them a tool, and they actually then started to work together much better. So they certainly do have their benefits when they're applied in a good way.
Can the results of a personality test depend on the mood or what you're going through at a different particular time?
Potentially, yes. It makes sense, doesn't it? Because if I'm in a place where I'm feeling particularly excited and life's going really well and it's a nice place to be, I'm going to have a more buoyant outlook on the world when I answer some of these questions. And so I guess what your question there really taps into is the subjective nature of many of these instruments. So it can be that over time you may or may not get the consistency or the reliability of the results. And so I think it's important, if you are perhaps maybe not travelling so well, to understand that the results that you might get might be reflective of where you were at on the day that you did the test.
That's psychology expert and author Dr. Jo Lukens talking all about personality tests there.